Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Starting this vlog a little bit later than normal. It's actually 7 PM at the moment. I'm just about to have my dinner. Just having some bolognese pasta that Mum made with a bun with some butter on it and a Pepsi Max. Pretty high calorie meal. I haven't eaten much today, so I can afford to have this. But yeah, basically this vlog is going to be about how to increase your bench press. So I'm going to go over tips on how to increase your bench press. Just going to eat this now, and then I'll come back with a few of the tips before I go into training. So I'll see you guys then. So I just pulled up at the gym. Just wanted to quickly cover the first point. So all these tips I give you are going to be on how to increase your bench press. Basically just because it's the most probably most talked about lift. It does apply to every lift, or the general tips, but I will give some tips on form and that as well that will help. The first thing you have to remember is your strength isn't really going to go up unless you're eating in a caloric surplus, unless you're maybe new to training or whatever. So if you've been training a while, make sure you're eating in a caloric surplus first, and then think about these tips. So I'm going to go over my workout. I am going to actually try something new. Instead of having the music playing over, I'm actually going to do a voice recording of going through just, my thoughts and stuff of during the workout and what I think about as I'm going into each set or whatever that I show. I will also give some tips through that as well to kind of help keep the video a bit shorter. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. I'll see you guys in there. Hey guys, so this is the first time I'm doing a voiceover for my YouTube videos, so bear with me if I either stutter or just forget to say something. But so here I'm starting on the bench press. I had actually done a few acclimation sets or warm-up sets, if you want to, whatever you want to call them, before this. Here's just 100 kilos for 5 on the pause bench. So the reason I do pause bench is basically because I'm planning on eventually competing in a powerlifting meet, which I'll need to actually pause at the bottom of the rep for it to be counted. So moving on to 105 kilos here for another 5 reps. The first thing I wanted to touch on is notice my setup before I go to actually start the set. I'm tucking my heels back as far as I can while they're still planted on the ground. My heels will come up every now and then, mainly because I'm still trying to practice actually tucking my legs back as far as I can. What this will do is it'll incorporate leg drive into the movement. So if you're just like leaving your legs flimsy or even off the floor, you'll actually have much less stability in the movement, and you won't be able to incorporate any leg drive into the movement. So this actually will make a big difference. Something I like to do before the movement is actually stretch out my quads and hips just to make it a bit easier to tuck my legs back. You can see here my heels are slightly off the ground. In some federations you are allowed to have your heels off the ground. I just like to practice keeping my heels on the ground because in the IPF, which is the main powerlifting federation, you do have to have your heels on the ground, I believe. So here's just another set with 105 for 5. That last one was a bit of a grinder. I almost hit failure there. And then I moved on to another set of 100. I backed it off just because I almost hit failure there. That's the next thing I want to touch on is a lot of people are so used to training to failure every single set. If you're training for strength in particular, I'd really advise against this. You want to basically train to what's called an RPE 8 or 9 roughly. RPE means rate of perceived exertion. It's basically a 1 to 10 scale on the intensity of the set, or how close you are to failure, 10 being failure, that you couldn't get any more reps. But yeah, when you're training on lower rep scheme, then a higher RPE will actually be closer to failure. So 9, you wouldn't really be able to get any more reps with a 9 if you're doing sets of like 5 or less. So here I just did a AMRAP set, which stands for as many reps as possible on the touch and go bench with 100 kilos. I just like to do this to kind of measure where my strength's at. I do this at the end of my working sets. I got 8 reps here, I think, which is I think the highest I've gotten is 10. So I like to just gauge that on my progress, but also on my fatigue. Generally, like if I'm more fatigued, I won't be able to get 8 reps with the 100. So moving on to behind the neck press, I like to do a vertical pressing movement, generally a barbell movement after the horizontal press. So what this does is I like this movement because it increases my shoulder range of motion, which I've had trouble with in the past. As you can see, I'm coming all the way down, touching my traps and then exploding up. You want to also make sure you have a good, strong core when you're doing this, just because it is putting you in a risk of injury in that position. So yeah, I like to keep the weight quite light as well for that. Moving on to incline dumbbell press. Did that other movement before, I did 3 sets of 10. I also did 3 sets of 10 on here. Unless it was 3 sets of 12 for the behind the neck. But yeah, anyway, around the same thing. I like to do roughly ranging from 10 to 20 reps on all my accessory work. Accessory just is basically any exercise that isn't the main movements. The main movement here being the bench press. So yeah, another tip on increasing your bench press is, this is probably something that will help the most, but you basically just want to bench more frequently, and that includes more reps, more sets over the entire week, not just in one day. One mistake a lot of people have is just training the movement once per week. You're really missing out on a lot of potential growth here. So try and hit the bench press. Say if you're hitting it once, try and hit it twice a week. See if that works on increasing your bench press. Then if you're hitting it twice a week, try and increase it to 3 times a week. The bench press isn't too taxing on your central nervous system, so you can afford to actually hit it more frequently. Some powerlifters even go up to hitting it 4 or 5 times a week. I think the highest I've gone is 3. At the moment, I'm hitting it twice a week. I want to increase that to 3, just because the bench press is kind of lagging for me in comparison to the squats and deadlifts. So what you just saw there was just some cable lateral raises from behind the body. I just like that plane of motion a little bit better. I feel a better contraction, and I like using the cables. I switch between dumbbells and cables, but I feel like the cable gives a better contraction. And then I supersetted that with single arm tricep push downs, which I just hold the end of the cable without a handle. I would use just a single straight attachment if your gym has it, but you get a really good contraction here. You'll see that I'm slightly extending the shoulder a bit at the end. What that will do is hit the long head. The long head actually attaches to a different spot to the other heads, and will contribute slightly to shoulder extension. So yeah, that'll just about finish up this voiceover. I hope you enjoyed the video. You'll see a little clip to conclude after this anyway. But yeah, let me know if you guys want to hear any more of this later on. Cheers. So I'm just going to have my shake and go to sleep. I'm pretty buggered. Uni's back in full swing now, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to comment if there's anything you want to see in future videos. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.